Good morning and welcome to this month's edition of the Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation's third Wednesday Parent Resource Chat. My name is Bettina Campbell. I am the Social Service Director and also a Medicaid CHIP assister at the Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation. We also have with us this morning Lottie Miner, who is the Project Director at the Oak Hill, and Mr. Thomas Robinson, our technology metrics assist, who's assisting us this morning with the technology. We recognize our board chair, Jennifer Garrett, our executive director, Dr. Michael O. Miner. In addition to this Zoom chat, we are restreaming today on the Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation and Healthy Kids Mississippi Facebook pages. Feel free to share with your social media. Today, we have an awesome guest with us, Sister Ellen McKnight from the Maxine firm. She will be talking about good nutrition and parents' roles as role models for their children's nutrition. Let me give you just a bit about this awesome young lady. And when I say awesome, I do mean awesome. Ellen believes that healthy communities are built on a foundation of education, access, and opportunity. Promoting healthy lifestyle changes and providing urban communities with economic development opportunities by way of fresh foods and access is her life's goal and passion. She's a registered dietitian and public health advocate, and currently the principal of the Maxine firm. The Maxine firm is a nutrition and wellness firm made up of a network of health care providers. I'm tripping over my own tongue this morning, trying to move too fast. Let me start that again. The Maxine firm is a nutrition and wellness firm made up of a network of healthcare professionals whose primary objective is preventing chronic disease related to nutritional practices. Through seminars, presentations, symposiums, McKnight, along with the firm's network of healthcare professionals, travel across the country, equipping communities with practical strategies to improve their overall wellness. She is a Business Report 40 and Under 40 recipient. She's a New Schools Change Maker Award recipient. She's also received the Southern Law Center Community Advocate for the Year Award. She's an Alpha Community Trailblazer Award and the Next Generation's Pioneer Millennium Woman of the Year. Let me say that one again. She's a Next Generation's Pioneers Millennial Woman of the Year Award. I told you she was awesome. Look at that beautiful smile. She's a member of the Baton Rouge Dietetic Association, the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics, the National Organization of Black Dietetics, and the Nutrition and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Inc., and a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporation. She holds a bachelor's in science, nutrition, and food, and a master's of public administration, healthcare concentration from the Southern University and A&M College. She does so much. My tongue is just tripping. I'm so proud of her. Just learning so much about her today. And she firmly believes that heart attacks does not have to be our family history, and diabetes does not have to be our destiny. Let me say that again. Ellen firmly believes that heart attacks do not have to be our family's history, and diabetes does not have to be our destiny. One more time. She believes that heart attacks do not have to be our family history, and diabetes does not have to be our destiny. So let me say, welcome today, Sister Ellen, for joining us. And I'm just so excited about your presentation.
Thank you.
So let me begin by asking you, what is a balanced nutrition?
So that's a really great question. And thank you so much for the invitation, Sister Bettina. But essentially, balanced nutrition is just everyday individuals and families striving to make their plate whole, to make their plate healthy. And so every time they sit down to their plates, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you want to make certain that you have those 5 food groups on your plates. And that's grains, proteins, fruit and vegetables, and, low-fat dairy. And so often, when we sit down to our plates, most of the plates are filled with meat or protein or grains. And we kind of forget about those fruits and vegetables. But the fruits and vegetables are so very important because the majority of our vitamins and minerals come from fruit and vegetables. So we want to make certain, this is 3 ways you can make certain that the plate is balanced. One, make certain that the plate is colorful. Okay, that's the first step to balanced nutrition. If everything on that plate is brown, light brown, or yellow, 9 times out of 10 is high in saturated fat, high in sodium, or high in added sugar. And we know that added sugar is linked to type 2 diabetes. Saturated fat is linked to heart disease, and added sodium is linked to hypertension. And so we want to make certain that that plate is colorful so we have the majority of the plate representing fruit and vegetables. The next thing you want to do is make certain that you have a variety of groups on that plate, and that's the 5 groups that I mentioned earlier. So I'll say that again. Those are your proteins, grains, fruit, vegetables, and low-fat dairy. And lastly, if you want to make certain that that plate is balanced, you want to make certain that you have the right kind of groups on that plate, okay? And those are whole grains, lean proteins, fresh fruit and vegetables, and then lastly, low-fat dairy.
Wow. Okay, so now you knocked on my door several times. So tell us, why is it so important? I know you mentioned some of the chronic diseases that people can get. Can you give us some more examples of chronic diseases that might be affected by poor nutrition or poor nutritional
Certainly.
habits?
Yes, ma'am. Certainly, Sister Bettina. And that's a really good question because so often, so many of these chronic diseases or chronic illnesses are so commonplace in our families. And so we get to the point that we just expect it to happen. I expect that I'm going to have type 2 diabetes. I expect to be experiencing overweight or obesity. I expect to be experiencing heart disease, high cholesterol. I expect a stroke. I expect a heart attack. Dialysis is a common thing in the neighborhood that I live in and in my family. And the reality of the situation is these things, 90 times out of 100, are not genetic. These chronic diseases are preventable through diet and lifestyle. And so when we talk about those chronic diseases, when we talk about heart disease, that leads to heart attack, we know that is due to the over intake of saturated fats in our diet. It's due to the excess intake of sodium or salt. It's due to physical inactivity. We know that we're supposed to be moving 30 to 60 minutes every day. If you need some encouragement around moving, I encourage you to tap in to Let's Move National Baptist with Sister Nettie Johnson and the Hope Ministry. There are some instructives there that can get you moving in a safe way at every level. We know that type 2 diabetes, which is commonplace in our community, is linked to the excess intake of added sugars. And those are added sugars that we find in beverages, fruit juices, candy, packaged goods. The list goes on and on. And we can't forget our personal favorite, our pound cakes and our pies and things like that. But those drinks, those added sugars will slip up on you in those drinks, and even with the juice that we give our children. And so we have to be very mindful of the kind of juice that we give our children, because our pancreas is working from the day we're born to the day that we die, and our pancreas produces insulin, and at every age. And insulin, right, helps regulate blood sugar. Insulin is the hormone that pulls the blood sugar into the cell. And if we are eating way too much added sugar, right, consistently over time, we could, wear our pancreas out, right? And so what we want to do is to make certain that we are monitoring the added sugar that we intake a day. And even if we are doing things like juice for our children, we want to make certain that the recommendation is under 4 ounces, right? And there's even an opportunity if you're giving your children fruit juice, that you can cut it with water to make it stretch a little longer. So you might put 2 ounces of, juice and 2 ounces of water, or 3 ounces of juice, and in that sippy cup, and 1 ounce of water to kind of dilute the sugar, make the juice stretch. And also, whenever you are choosing fruit juice, which is high in added sugar, for your children or as an adult, you want to make certain that the label says No sugar added. No sugar added. You also want to make certain that it is 100% real juice, because we don't want to feed our children juice that's not real juice. Like Tang is not orange juice, it is orange color and water and sugar. We don't want, we just want to make certain that if in fact we are giving our children fruit, we don't want to um, leave out the fruit and just the juice. And so back to those chronic diseases, we talked about heart disease, heart attack, linked to saturated fat, type 2 diabetes, linked to added sugar and physical activity, heart disease linked to added saturated fat, intake of added saturated fat, and no physical activity. But then also hypertension, high blood pressure. That is the silent killer. That is linked to so many different complications. And so we know that heart disease and high blood pressure go hand in hand. We know that that's linked to excess sodium intake in a day. And we know that if we're not on high blood pressure medicine, the American Heart Association recommends that we only intake 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. And I'm gonna say that again because I want you to write it down. That's 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. And that's really important because that lets us know that we need to check the food label at every opportunity. Flip the food label around, even if it's a bag of chips, flip it over and compare that bag of chips. If it's a candy bar, flip over a candy bar. If it is a fruit bar or a granola bar, flip it over and see what the amount of sodium is. If it is a salad dressing, flip it over because a lot of times there's sodium in salad dressings. If it is a can of spaghetti sauce, flip the can of spaghetti sauce over and compare the sodium. And you then choose the can or the package that's lower in sodium. Another place that sodium hides is deli meat. Flip over the different brands of deli meat, and I would encourage you to, choose a leaner protein like a turkey or a chicken and not a ham or a salami because that's higher in saturated fat, and we know saturated fat causes heart attack. But if we can kind of move our children into consuming foods that are lower in saturated fat, it will benefit them over a lifetime. So we talked about heart disease that's linked to saturated fat. We talked about hypertension and stroke that's linked to excess sodium intake. And I've also discussed type 2 diabetes that's linked to added sugar intake. And underlining all of these is physical inactivity that lends itself to chronic diseases that can be preventable. And lastly, and this is not all of them, but kidney failure is a thing in our community. And we know that kidney failure occurs earlier and earlier for African Americans. We can find a dialysis clinic in our neighborhood, but we often cannot find a grocery store in our neighborhood. And for that reason, that limits our access to fresh and affordable fruits and vegetables and food. And so if that is the case, we have to be ever so careful to protect our kidneys. Kidney failure can develop and progress into perhaps dialysis treatment if we have type 2 diabetes and it goes uncontrolled, and if we have kidney, if we have hypertension or high blood pressure and it's uncontrolled. Hypertension and type 2 diabetes together is a recipe for kidney failure and dialysis. So those are some preventable diseases that are common in our communities, in our families, in our churches, among our youth and our children that can be prevented if we pay special attention to the food that we intake and increase our physical activity.
That's awesome. And one of the things that we know, a lot of our children are not as active as they should be since the invent of the computer and all the games that they have on that. And they took it out of schools. So they're not getting the activities that they should get. And so what about fast foods?
Fast foods. And so we understand that moms and dads and parents and grandmothers, they're moving. They're trying to get from day to day. And we understand why convenience is a priority for our families. At the same time, we have to make our health across our lifespan, a priority. We have to start teaching about, patterns and habits and lifestyle changes that can set our families and our communities up for success and help us to command our own health. So while we know that the fast food is convenient, sometimes we have to take an extra step to command our own health and set us up for the future. So it's kind of like doing the work on the front end so we won't have to be sick on the back end. Doing the work on the front end of preparing so we won't have to make a knee jerk decision about the food. So here's what the fast food. Fast food, we need it. It's convenient. We feel. And so one of the best ways to combat consuming too much fast food or having to stop to get too much fast food is planning out your meals at home for the week ahead of time. So if it is Saturday, excuse me, some folks go shopping on Saturday, some folks go shopping on Sunday evening. But I want you to be thinking about on Friday, what am I going to be consuming next week? Say, for example, we're not eating at home for breakfast and lunch because, the children are eating at school or something like that. That's great. But for dinner, what are we going to be doing for dinner? So, perhaps get a weekly schedule together so that you can purchase those foods at the grocery store or use any of your resources like SNAP resources. If you get commodity food resources, you can use those. Use every resource at your disposal to come up with um, a menu for the week so that you can plan those meals ahead. And if you plan those meals ahead and purchase those items accordingly so that you can mitigate or avoid food waste, then you can plan out your meals for the week. They're already ready or already prepared. Plan out meals that are easy for you. Maybe it's a crock pot meal. Maybe it's a red beans and rice meal. Maybe it's a white beans and rice meal. Maybe it's a stew. Maybe it's a pasta. Maybe it's a baked dish. But whatever you're doing, figure out, what's easy for you that you're able to, feed your family and balance your plate. And then also, if you plan out your food for the upcoming week, so you don't have to make a knee-jerk decision and stop at the fast food place, you can also clip coupons and see what's on sale, and you can plan your meals around that as well. So we understand that this takes additional effort sometimes to make the right decision, but it pays off in the end.
Wonderful. Oh, that was a lot of good information that you're sharing with us today. Um, uh, when I was growing up and when I was a young mother, they had a food pyramid, but now I don't hear the pyramid so much. I hear my plate, my plate. Can you tell us what my plate is?
I can definitely, and I normally have my plate with me. Do I have the opportunity to share my screen, Sister Bettina?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I am going to be talking, but as I'm talking, I'm going to be looking for this my plate. So that is correct. We used to use my plate. We used to use the food pyramid, and that was produced by the USDA. But we no longer
Yes.
use the food pyramid anymore because folks have decided that, hey, it's a little bit too it's a little bit too much to remember. It's a little bit too complex. A few too many rules. And so now we use my plate. And the whole point of my plate, I talked about it earlier. Every time you sit down to your plate, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you want to make certain that you have those 5 food groups present. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see. So you can take a look at it for those who have not seen it. And this is really a guide that you can use post disabled participant. So if is it Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes, we're working on it right now.
you're working on
So,
it right now, no problem.
yes, no.
And so every time you sit down to this plate, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you want to make certain that you have whole grains on this plate. You want to make certain that you have protein on this plate. You want to make certain that you have fruit, vegetables, and low fat dairy. And those are the 5 food groups. And the idea or the concept is if you want to eat healthier, if you want to balance your meals, if you want to try to get as many vitamins and minerals in your body on a day-to-day basis, right? You want to implement my plate, okay? And so thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'm able to share now. And is everyone able to see the screen?
Yes.
Just if you can move it over to the your left or right, we can see half of the plate.
Half of the plate. Oh my, I don't even know how to.
Wait a minute, maybe it's my screen. No. Yep, we got it. Thank you.
Okay. And so this is my plate. Let's see if I can find, here we go. This is my plate. And so Sister Bettina mentioned that we used to use this one right here, right? But we no longer use this one. We use my plate. And again, my plate. Every time you sit down to your plate, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you need fruit on the plate. We need vegetables on the plate. We need grains, we need protein, and we need dairy. All right. If we have all five food groups on that plate, then 9 times out of 10, that plate is balanced. Okay. And if we have those different food groups on the plate, we have different colors on the plate. We can start moving towards preventing chronic diseases. We can make certain that we have all our vitamins and minerals, and we can make half of our plate fruits and vegetables. Okay. Because we know the majority of our vitamins and minerals come from fruits and vegetables. They are the most colorful group, which means they offer us antioxidants. And we know that antioxidants fight free radicals in the body that may cause cancer. So those colors are important. The different groups are important. Socrates once said, "Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food." So if our plates are balanced and colorful, we know that we can consume the medicine via our vitamins and minerals before we are forced to take a prescription medication.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. I hope that parents and children care providers are listening, and that they take that all in, and that we begin to be more serious about what foods we're giving. And along with that, sometimes the children, when they get home, they want to grab a snack, or over the weekend, they want a snack. What are some healthy snacks for them?
Well, that's a great question. I am going to skip ahead. Oftentimes, the snacks that children enjoy are in the grains group. Their chips, their Pop Tarts, their Cheez-Its, their sandwiches, those types of things. And I want to encourage um, parents and kids to, when you think of snack options, first, think of fruit, right? So think of like safe fruits that children can eat. So perhaps like apple slices with peanut butter. That's a great snack. Grapes, if they're over 2 years old, that's a great snack. If they're under 2 years old, grapes are considered choking foods. So we don't want to give the 2 year olds whole grapes because they're considered choking foods. You would want to slice those up for the little ones. With grapes, apple slices with peanut butter, celery sticks with peanut butter and raisins, with peanut butter and raisins, um, uh, baby carrots. Um, if you are a chip family, if you like Lay's potato chips, or Doritos and things like that, we want to try to encourage you to shift to baked chips. So perhaps baked chips instead of those traditional chips that we may be giving the children at after school or children's church, or what have you. They come in the large boxes at Sam's, at Walmart, the box is 25. And instead of getting the regular box of 25, try the baked option. And the younger you start that with them, then it will start to shift their taste buds. Also, flavored water. So perhaps um, the children are interested in, sometimes they want a little bit more than just plain water. So perhaps infusing the water with fruit, and then also you can try some of the sugar-free um, excuse me flavored water enhancers, fruit flavored water enhancers that um, have different brands. Also, the majority of the sugar that children intake comes from the breakfast cereal. And so cereals like Frosted Flakes, Fruit Loops, Sugar Smacks, Fruity Pebbles, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Corn Pops, Honeycomb, those cereals are high in added sugar, and those can link those are linked to um, excess added sugar intake. And so we know that that's linked to diabetes, type 2 diabetes in our children, also linked to childhood obesity. So trying to switch to cereals like Honey Nut Cheerios that are whole grain, looking for cereals that are whole grain cereals for kids. So Kashi, Honey Nut Cheerios, Apple Cinnamon Cheerios. There are different brands that you can try with your children. And then also there's some favorites like Goldfish. Every kid likes Goldfish, but there's a whole grain option. So consider that. Lots of kids like Cheez It. There's a whole grain option. Consider that. These crackers were a favorite at my church right here on the side, but they're also a whole grain option. They're whole grain crackers. They're whole grain chips. And then also nuts are a heart healthy snack for our kids. So, more water, less sugary cereals, switching to whole grains, even Pop Tarts have a whole grain option. And this is the whole grain stamp. So if you're wondering if it's a whole grain product or not, look for that stamp. You can also look on the back of the food label to see if it's the whole grain product or not. And whole grains are really, really important to implement or to eat over the lifespan because they help lower your cholesterol, they keep you fuller longer, and they have a lower glycemic index, and they take longer to digest in your bloodstream, and they don't cause your blood sugar to spike. And so they're really beneficial. So those are just some ways that children can eat healthier snacks, switch out those baked chips, switch to a healthier cereal. If it's a grain product, switch to a whole grain, incorporate some nuts, and instead of reaching for the candy, let's reach for some fruit.
That's awesome. I can imagine that once parents start trying to make those changes, that they shouldn't do it all at once, gradually slide something in there, because I know that in my house, there would have been a huge protest. So,
Yes,
um,
gradually and as early as possible. And perhaps you don't announce that because half of this is mental. You don't announce that, dad or mom, we're buying the whole grain goldfish. Perhaps you just slide those whole grain goldfish on that paper towel or in that Ziploc bag and you let the Lord do the rest.
yeah, for myself, I found that I had to just start mixing them, and then gradually putting more whole grain than the regular. And my children adapted, but my grandchildren, I should say, because my children didn't get that opportunity. My grandchildren
Gotcha.
adapted. So now I wanted to know about physical activity. I spoke a few minutes ago about how most of our children have their faces in a computer or they're on the phone. They're not trying to be outside playing like my generation or my children's generation. So how does that affect them? How often should children be physically active?
That's a great question. So the recommendation is a minimum of 30 minutes every day. Children should be active. Now, if and they can be active in different ways. That's biking, rollerblading, running, dance practice, gardening, skateboarding. There's so many different ways that children can be active. And so oftentimes I hear the elders talk about, oh, they have so much energy, like, oh, let them go outside, with some supervision and, work off some of that energy. But the recommendation is 30 minutes of physical activity every day. When I was in elementary school, we had PE every day and we had 30 minutes of PE. And I know in some places that PE is not an option for the children anymore, but I would encourage parents that after school that they have some time to be physically active. It may be on a sports team. They may be in softball or t-ball, or they may play basketball or football or tennis, or they may play golf, whatever it may be, or lacrosse. But whatever's or again dance, cheer, gymnastics, and then it may just be them playing at home in the park, playing in their neighborhood in the park, playing in the front yard, playing in the backyard. But whatever they are doing, as long the recommendation is 30 minutes of physical activity every day for our children. And for our adults, it's 60 minutes of physical activity every day.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes,
Oh, we've gotten so much information from you today, and I know that you could probably go on and on and on, but we do want to have an opportunity for our listening audience to be able to ask questions. But I do have one final question for you. And I call it the $64,000 question that plagues most parents is how do you encourage our children to consume more fruits and vegetables?
That's a great question. I have found that if children have an opportunity to grow their own fruits and vegetables, they're more interested in consuming fruits and vegetables if they see it grown from the ground up. And they can pick it and then bring it to the house. I have learned that children who go grocery shopping with their parents and are able to pick out their fruits and vegetables and bring it home to prepare it, they are more prone to consume it. I have learned that if children are helping to prepare the fruits and vegetables, or chop them up, or cook them on the stove with their parents with supervision, they are more prone to tasting it. But if all of that fails, there are children are more um, likely to consume a smoothie that is like maybe a strawberry and banana smoothie. But if you add spinach to the smoothie, you can't taste the spinach and you can't see the spinach. But what we are most concerned about is them consuming the vitamins and minerals that comes from the spinach. Most children don't like beets. Most children don't like carrots or ginger. But when you press them or fresh press them into a pure juice, it's that there is a sweetness overtakes those vegetables. And if children, and it comes out red, it comes out orange, and children are more prone to consume fruits and vegetables in a fresh juice form because it is similar to a Kool-Aid or a fruit punch, or some of those things that we discourage children from consuming, but it has a sweeter taste. And so those are some ways that we can encourage our children to consume more fruits and vegetables.
So with just a little bit of planning, and it takes maybe a little bit more work and forethought on our side, we can and encourage our children to consume those fruits and vegetables that are certainly more healthier than some people were probably surprised than the so-called fruit juices that you buy from the grocery store.
Yes, ma'am.
So
And then also cutting up the fruits and vegetables into smaller bite-sized pieces. So instead of a whole apple that's little, sometimes that might be a little bit intimidating for a little one. So slicing it or giving it to them in slices, slicing up the melon. Sometimes, and watermelon is one of my favorite, but sometimes, cutting out shapes of the fruit and giving it to them in shapes like a heart or a star or something like that. So yes, ma'am.
a little creativity gives us parents a chance to practice our art, huh? That,
Yes.
that sounds that sounds wonderful. And I said, you've provided us with so much information. I'm wondering if we can stop sharing the screen now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Um, so, as I said, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned some things that I certainly didn't know and reminded of some others. And I think that you've given us a lot of information that will help us to encourage our children to eat healthy, but most importantly, to help us to reframe our thinking around our own health and how we can do a better job of being better stewards of our bodies. So thank you so much for that information. And now I'm going to open it up for questions. So if you have questions, either put them in the chat or put them on the screen, and we'll have someone looking in our social media. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, now is a good time. You can open up, if you're on Zoom, you can open up your mic and ask those questions. And if you're on social media, write them in our chat and we'll have someone ask the questions for you. I guess you're doing a wonderful job.
Well,
No questions?
no questions.
Duke, are there any questions from our
No,
social
ma'am.
media?
No, ma'am. I'm looking
Okay,
at chicken
wow.
now.
You've done a wonderful job. And as you always, here's my grandson likes to eat uncooked noodles as snacks. Is that okay?
That's a common thing. So if that's okay, just wash them and rinse them off. But if those noodles are whole grain noodles, That's even better. So if those are, white spaghetti noodles or white, macaroni noodles, that's a common thing. Kids eat them. Um, again, just wash them off. But if they're whole grain, then he's really cooking with grease.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions over here. I do see a comment, several comments that says great information. And I can certainly echo that. We've learned a lot today. Um, Sister Ellen, is there a way that if they have additional questions, I mean, we're going to refer them to our social media page on our website, that puts that information will be posted. But is there a way that they can contact you if they want a Maxine firm to come out to their church or to their school or to their parent group to provide some information that they can contact you?
Absolutely. I will put the information in the chat, but you just go to the website and it's www.themaximefirm.com and you can fill out the contact information and we will get back to you soon. You can also give us a call at 225-334-8802 or you can send an email at info at themaximefirm.com and I will type that information in the chat. But yes, those are the ways that you can get in contact.
Well, seems like we have some questions coming in. Someone wants to know what are some sugar substitutes?
Okay. And so honey is an option for sweetening like your beverages. Um, it is antimicrobial. And then there's also agave nectar. You don't need as much agave nectar as with other sweeteners. And those are some ways that you can naturally sweeten your beverages or your food items. Mhm. And so a
Okay.
lot of those. So you put honey in your tea. If you're doing Cheerios that are like plain Cheerios, or I would recommend you can sprinkle a little bit of honey on your Cheerios and then add your milk instead of sprinkling sugar.
Right.
Yeah.
I, I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Wait just a second. I think that we have all the questions taken care of. So I just want to say again, thank you. Awesome. And I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on because this is information that's definitely needed because it does definitely fit. You gave us a way to follow your example when you say that heart attacks don't have to be your family history and diabetes does not have to be our destiny. So starting today, we can keep that in mind and we can begin to change some of those habits. We know you're not going to change them all at one time, but if you can gradually change, every change you make makes a difference. So if you can just gradually change over and before you know it, the children will be thinking when you hand them a pop, oh, this is too sweet. I don't want that. I want something else. And so I mean, so yes.
That's the goal. That is the
Oh,
goal.
so there's one other question came in, said, how much water should we consume per day?
Okay, and that varies from person to person. If you're on a fluid restriction from your doctor, then that amount of water, your doctor will let you know how much water that you should be consuming if you have a heart condition or if you're on some type of sodium restriction. That's one thing. But for everyday healthy Americans, about 8 bottles of water a day is the recommendation still. Now, if you are trying to figure out how do I start this, you wanted to try to make certain that every time you sit down to your plate, you have a bottle of water or a glass of water before you drink anything else. And so, at minimum, you're drinking 3 bottles of water a day. And sometimes we go through the day and we don't have any water. So when we talk about baby steps, at minimum, every time I have a meal, I drink a glass of water. And if I want something else to drink, I'll drink that. You know what I mean? But the recommendation is still 8 glasses of water a day.
So when you say a bottle, are you talking about the 16-ounce bottle, or are you talking about just a regular 8-ounce glass or 8-ounce bottle of water?
So like a 8 ounce glass of water, is the recommendation.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, because I can 8 bottles of the 16 ounces, it might be a bit too much.
You know, that might be a little bit overwhelming, but like I said, baseline, make certain that you drink water every day, period. Next step, hey, I have a glass of water at every meal, you know.
Well,
Then
the questions are coming in now. It says, is room temperature water better for us?
there's some research that says that cold water shocks your system. But we have found that it's really based on preference. So, some folks are like, yeah, it's just not comfortable for me to drink ice cold water. Some folks are like, hey, I live in a climate and I need ice cold water. So it's based on your preference. But there is some research that speaks to ice cold water sending your body into shock. So that's up to you based on preference. And if you have some medical condition, I recommend that you speak with your primary care physician about it. But yeah, perfect.
Wonderful, thank you. And finally, there's someone who want to know how long this video recorded will be available. We will actually post the video, and then we'll turn it into a YouTube video, and so it will be available from now on. So just check on our website, which is www.oakhillregionalcdc.com or www.healthykidsms.org. One of those websites, and you will find the information that can take you to our YouTube. So I wanted to give you a couple of reminders. That one is that Oak Hill Regional Corporation, Oak Hill Church, I should say, is a VITA site, and that's for our taxes. So if you need your taxes done free, we want you to please drop your information off at the Hill, at Oak Hill on Memphis Street in Hernando, and the number is 662-298-3584 to call if you have questions about what you should bring in order to get your taxes done. Again, that's free taxes that are available through the VITA program at Oak Hill Church on Memphis Street in Hernando, or you can call 662-298-3584. On Monday, March the 28th, from 6 p.m., please join us for the Ask Mary and Pat Zoom webinar. They're giving out wonderful information about health and health coverage for you and for your children, especially your children. So please remember to watch and find out, especially if you are on Medicaid or trying to find out if you're eligible for Medicaid. Please get those questions together and join Mary and Pat on March 28th and ask those questions. And finally, our next third Wednesday parent chat resource chat will be held on April the 20th. And Dr. Don Vereen from the University of Michigan School of Public Health will be discussing understanding connections between mental health and substance abuse disorder. Again, that's April 20th, Dr. Vereen, and we'll be talking about mental health and substance use disorder. So again, thank you so very much for joining in. Oh, there's the information in the chat about how much income you can have in order to be eligible to use the VITA services. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to be signing off on our Facebook. And if those are on Zoom, we'll stick around for just a few minutes so we can have a little wind down conversation. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Everybody have a blessed day.